far as I can see, is the embraced by the current feminist crowd of Islam, and especially of Sharia. And I haven't heard anything that kind of explains why this could be. Can you?
Yeah, all the feminism and all the theories and ideologies of the left, they're all based in this idea that other people, other with a capital O, if you're not white, heterosexual, imperialist, European, if you are all those things, then you're automatically bad. But if you are dark-skinned, if you are a woman, if you are a native, if you are from another culture, especially in the more exotic the culture, the more interesting it is. It doesn't matter if it's a culture that is not friendly to women. It doesn't matter if it's a culture that is backward in some respects. That culture, by definition, must be better than us, because it must be a culture that we have been hateful towards, or if they have a beef with us, then it must be our fault. So it just automatically slots into this kind of, without thinking, it slots into the category of victim. And whether they are victims or not victims, objectively, is of no consequence. And it has the same phenomenon is visible in. I have to read my Pitbull essay. I know it. No, the question I actually was very. It falls into place in the same way. Why are so many people buying pit bulls? Pit bulls have become one of the most popular dogs of all the breeds. Pit bulls are demonstrably more dangerous than other dogs. It's in their genetics. They are genetically programmed to fight, to harm other animals, and to be dangerous. They are dangerous animals. So they have to be very carefully, like you have to, Why are they so popular? Because it's the same way of thinking. I call it multi-caninism. That is this, I do, because it's the same principle. People say you cannot discriminate against dogs. Dogs are individuals, and you cannot stereotype them. It is racist. All these words, by the way, are used by dog people. I've been called like Hitler because I call pit bulls dangerous. And you must not say that. But it's true. No. That is to discriminate. My dog, my pit bull, is very lovable. So this is like, my Muslim neighbor is very, very nice. Well, I'm sure your Muslim neighbor is very, very nice, but all the people that happen to be, terrorizing the world today, 99% of them, happen to believe in a jihadist philosophy. But that you're discriminating, you're stereotyping. So it's the same idea that you do not have the right to profile or discriminate on the basis of objective reality. And so these feminists who, amongst themselves, for their own daughters, for their own students, for their own, would not dream of allowing a man to tell them what to do, are delighted to accommodate the cultural practices of other people because it would be discriminatory and racialist to say, well, the way we do things in the West and our equality, this is a better way of life. You can't say that because that would be discriminatory, wouldn't it? And so you can't judge. You can't judge other cultures. If that is their identity, then it is okay because that's their cultural identity. So we cannot judge, we cannot say boo. It's wrong. But that is the way that is thinking.
This week when Brett Stevens was talking, he said, look, I want to give you the liberal case why Iran should not get nuclear weapons. The liberal case is that a regime that buries women to their waist and then kills them with stones, that is not a regime that should be allowed to have nuclear weapons.
That's a good case.
I thought it was very well put. I wish more people would understand that.
If only liberals were reading Bret Stevens.
Robert?
Right. One quick question. Fred says I talk too much. Don't you feel that Montreal Anglophones and Quebec Anglophones in general have brought it in themselves? Because they always voted Liberal federally. If a whole bunch of them had voted for Joe Clark in 1970, it would go on and on and on and on. But what I'd like to know is why Quebec Anglophones didn't generate heroes of the type of Ian Paisley and Bill Craig and send them to Ottawa instead of sending people like Trudeau to Ottawa. And really, because I went through a phase of believing that Canada should cast Quebec off, and I have cousins who are Quebec Anglophones from both my mother and father's side, both sets of whom have Westmount connections. And listening to their sort of liberal, I thought, well, we'll abandon you guys who won't fight for themselves. Why didn't Quebec Anglophones generate people like Paisley and Craig? And they sort of half-hearted attempt by someone who, Royal Law is no relation of mine. But why didn't Quebec Anglophones get much more vigorous about that instead of sending Trudeau to camp?
I think there was a lot of guilt. I think there was a lot of guilt.
Well, then they were asking for it.
Well, okay, but I think there was a lot of guilt around the fact that, yes, there had been a rather paternalistic and imperialistic kind of attitude of the British toward francophones. They themselves had stayed away from business. They had been, their own priests had told them, don't get into business, let the English do the business, and you'll be the notaries, and you'll be the, the farmers and everything else. But I think that in the same way that we have tremendous guilt around the Native issue and the First Nations issues, we have in Quebec, I mean, we don't still have that guilt, but it's too late now. I think the generation that allowed this to happen, and don't forget, it was kind of this whole revolutionary idea, the whole separatist, it arose very quickly. We were also very scared. If you were there during the FLQ, well, that was scary. So we were willing to make compromises. We were very willing to make compromises, and some of those compromises were the right thing to do. We did have to learn French. It wasn't all. They weren't all their complaints were not. Some of them were valid.
Well, I prefer Quebec City to Montreal, actually, and I speak French in Quebec City. And one little known byway of Quebec history is that the majority of Wolfe's soldiers spoke Gaelic instead of English. And from that period, there are a whole lot of victory songs about defeating the French in the same way as McDonald's might have songs about the Campbells. And I play those in Quebec City, and I play them with my hosts and explain them in French and refer to 1759 as La Libération, and say that grâce à nous, vous n'êtes pas devenu Haiti. And I get away with it. And there should be much more in-your-face stuff pushing back.
So I think the people that were ready to be in your face, they did all that. And after the 1995 referendum, they got sick of it and left.
They didn't. They still kept voting Liberal on the federal level. They didn't.
But wasn't it part of it?
Yeah, it's not like
Trudeau stood up to with the War Measures Act. He stood up to the FLQ, and there was some faith that here was somebody who could. He didn't stand up for the English language rights, or the Liberal Party didn't afterwards. But when I was growing up, I mean, it was inconceivable for us not to vote Liberal.
I know. I mean, who else was there to vote for, really? It's not as if the Conservatives were Anglophone rights. What was Joe Clark going to do for us?
Well, what's he going to do for anybody?
No, but he was not a hero for anybody.
No.
So who else was there? And Trudeau, at least, was anti-separatist, and he was totally bilingual. Look, René Lévesque actually wanted to have special status for Montreal. So that English, they wouldn't have to have, people could speak English in business and all that. I mean, he was, it's a very complicated history, I think, and there's no easy answers to any of this.
Okay, thanks. Next question.
I was going to try to stand up, and I've got a serious question to ask, but you really tempted me to stand up for the defense of pit bulls. So for
you
that.
have a pit bull?
No, I shouldn't say anything because I get dragged into this, but I think
you hesitated there.
I don't have a pit bull, but my thinking is nobody's sitting there defending the pit bulls enough because these dogs are being blamed for the wrong things. War dogs were designed to tear people apart, and they did a really good job of it. And you said genetics, and that's what they're there for. I think the problem is that people have changed over the last 600 years, and now no longer have a use for them and realize their use. But would I want a pit bull beside me? No.
Okay, so we're on the same page. I mean, there's a lot of people that will tell you, oh no, they're very wonderful and sweet. It's the bad owners, you know, but it's not the bad owners. They really are.
I don't have that kind of a barrier. There was a pit bull beside a house where I would visit somebody, and he had young children.
No,
That would not be a living pit bull if it was me. I wouldn't have put that up. I wouldn't have put up with it because it's my kid. I'm sorry. It's just I wouldn't have accepted it.
Should I organize a Barbara K. Don Cherry debate?
But I got sidetracked. Can I ask a serious question?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of haunts me a bit are evolutionary changes or disruptions with social changes. So you have 1% of males, mostly landlords, being able to vote in the States in 1800, and then you have changes here and there. Are we not at a, and a lot of the social changes overdo it on the pendulum side. But I actually think now that we still talk about left wing versus right wing, but it's possibly more male versus female politics and thinking. And that there's a lot of changes that are still going to occur. You know, there are excesses in one way or the other.
No, it's true. I mean, you have patriarchal societies. I think we live now in a matriarchal society. Yeah, pendulums swing, they come back. There was a guy, Gordon Ratcliffe Taylor, who wrote a book, Sex and History, about how pendulums swing back and forth between maternalistic and paternalistic phases of history. So, you know, I think the pendulum will, it's a question of will it swing back in time for people who are living in duress right now because they're being unjustly treated because of the pendulum swinging too far. You know, they want to see that pendulum swing back a little faster.
But you're not anticipating it could actually change state. It could be a phase change, a change of state where we are dominantly matriarchal society.